Oh, the Vikings have done it, ladies and gentlemen. The Vikings have won the Kirk Cousins Bowl. We won the divorce. All right, the chains are on, the jersey's on. I'm wearing the Cousins jersey as an homage to, Will is dressed as Santa Claus this evening with his Christmas hat and his red T-shirt, which I believe is a Pat Mahomes T-shirt. Am I right on that?
It is a Pat Mahomes t-shirt, and no, I am not a Kansas City Chiefs fan. Let me make that very clear. This was a gift, and my wife got it for me because she was in Kansas City, so I wear the shirt. It's comfortable. Am I a Patrick Mahomes fan and a Chiefs fan? No, I am not. I am incredibly irritated with how they continue to win games. So,
I love the defense, but like you've got the Santa aesthetic tonight, and much like Santa Claus, old Koki boy just gift wrapped two beautiful ints, and I just love look, and I'm gonna be a little petty here, okay? We all know my checkered history with Cousins. I love the following things. Number one, Atlanta flew up to Minnesota. They had to check a bag that weighed a ridiculous amount that was stuffed full of chains and grills and all the bling on the planet. Because if Cousins won his revenge game, they were going to deck him out like, I don't know, Flava Flav, and they were going to parade him all over social media. So that was fun. Some assistant to the, equipment assistant had to carry that heavy chain bag back to Atlanta with them. And also, I love that he got booed. I just wanted to throw that. He got booed when he started the game. I love that. I'm from Cincinnati. Mandatory that I say that. So I don't have the whole Minnesota nice thing. I'm still in the Midwest and I'm still like, I was raised with manners or whatever. But
debatable.
there is an aspect of like Philly throwing snowballs at Santa Claus that I like, where it's like, yeah, we should. This guy played for us for 6 years and gave us one playoff win. We should, and then left for more money. When now reports roll in that the Vikings offer was pretty competitive with the well, it wasn't competitive. It was competitive with the market, and the Falcons just blew it up. And Cousins made a business decision instead of staying with Kevin O'Connell. And Cousins could be Sam Darnold, but alas, here we are with Sam Darnold. We'll talk more about him later. Will, I've talked for too long. It's been 3 minutes. How are you? Merry Christmas. Was that the best Christmas present that you could have gotten? Or do you have bigger presents, on the horizon potentially?
Happy Christmas, Jordan. Let's maybe take it one step at a time. I'll take that as my St. Nicholas Day gift, which is celebrated December 6th. So we'll take that as the early Christmas present. Now, this team has shown me that there are more things that could be wrapped under the tree. This isn't our Super Bowl. I believe that week 8 in Los Angeles was Sean McVay's Super Bowl. We'll get into that another time. But week 14, that revenge game that happened at US Bank Stadium on Sunday afternoon, that wasn't the Vikings Super Bowl. There is a lot more for this team to play for, and I think Sunday showed that. Let me be clear. There were reporters that were asking Vikings players if this was, the complete game that they've been striving for. I don't think it was. I thought the Vikings defense was leaky. I thought they bowed up when they needed to in the red zone. The red zone was the difference in the game. The Vikings scored touchdowns when they got down there 4 for 4. The Falcons were kicking field goals. That's the difference in the game. That's what gave the Vikings that lead, allowed them to grow on it. And the turnovers. The turnovers in the red zone is where the game was won. And if it wasn't for that situational mastery, if you will, Minnesota might not have won this game as comfortably as they did. And I think there's a lot of room for improvement. I think the tackling by the defense was poor. I thought there was just generally not enough pressure placed on Cousins. He was only sacked once, and he was getting the ball out quick, but also it's not as if it was just quick game all the time. He was hitting throws down the field. So I think the defense left something to be desired. But the thing that I do really like about this game, sort of as my main takeaway, Jordan, was maybe for the first time all year, the offense bailed out the defense.
Yeah.
And the offense won the team a game. Yes, there were 3 turnovers. Yes, there was one in the special teams phase. The offense put up 42 points. They iced the game with a 98-yard drive. And everything seemed to be working. I think Sam Darnold could have just chucked up deep balls left-handed on Sunday, and it might have worked. I mean, that guy was on another planet. We'll talk about him later. But to me, that's the biggest takeaway. The offense finally won the team a game. Not by themselves, but they were the main reason the team won.
Well, I think that, you look at the big offensive games that the Vikings have had this season, and a lot of it has been the defense propping them up and kind of putting them in advantageous, situations or whatever. It's like the defense gave them a small loan of $1 million, that bit or whatever. But it was, the defense gets a turnover, you're starting with the ball in field goal range already. Oh, wow, shocker, you scored a touchdown. That's not hard to do. It's hard to go, like you said, 98 yards to ice a game. They know you're running the ball, and you just pound it for 8. And it did feel like the Vikings were having their way in the end of that game. I was impressed with the run game late, but the run defense was kind of concerning. This is a bigger thing. Let's do a feels good, feels bad. And look, I'm going to let you dunk on me, okay, in due time. But the feels good, feels bad is usually just us saying, like, this is who we predicted to make the playoffs, and this is how it looks, and yada, yada. These are the things I'm going to say, just really quick, because my feels bad is actually Vikings related, which is kind of against the purpose of the segment. But feels good. We both put the Bengals in the playoffs, okay? And right now, you have a slash through that pick. You have a slash. The slashes right now are on the Niners, the Bears, the Cowboys, and the Bengals, and the Jags, Will's beloved Jags. But of all of those teams, I think the Niners still have hope, maybe prematurely slashed. And I'm not going to be like a Bengal homo, because their defense is really bad. But man, if they win out. And the Broncos have to lose all but one game. And the Broncos' schedule is no cakewalk. And one of those games is against Cincinnati. So, the Bengals, I think, could sneak in as a 7 seed, potentially knocking the Broncos off. But you're talking to someone who is not a Broncos believer. I don't believe in Bo Nix. I think that they're beating up on team. They've played good football. I'm not going to sit here and just be a complete hater. But I think there may be some regression, especially as they now enter a very difficult part of their schedule. The feels bad for me is Vikings related. I'm sick and tired of this team not having a dude in the middle of the line. We had Kevin Williams, and it's been nobody's since. I guess Linval was good. He wasn't a pass rusher though. He was just a good run stuffer. I'm tired. And Jalen Redmond is fun, and he's playing well. But he's not changing the game. He's just giving you a pretty decent, output on the field. And so that's my feels bad. Fix this. I don't care what you have to do. I don't know. And we'll talk about this later. If it's a tag and trade and then a trade up so you can get Mason Graham out of Michigan, go get a premier draft pick D tackle. Go get a really expensive free agent D tackle and fix this, and I know the run game is not decided just by a big fat defensive tackle, but man, we need better defensive tackle play, both in the pass rush department so we can get pressure up the middle, and also so that way we have someone that can eat 2 or 3 offensive linemen and let Pace, Cashman, whoever, Metellus, get down, get through, be untouched, and make plays behind the line of scrimmage. So that's my feels bad. I'm tired of the Vikings not having a stud in the middle, and it feels like we haven't had one since Linval, and Linval calling him a stud is kind of a stretch. He was a good run stuffer. So, I don't know. That's me. I'll let you get your feels good, feels bad off. Like I said, it's not supposed to be about the Vikings, but that's just been on my mind heavily lately.
Yeah, I think it's a reasonable concern. The only pushback I have on the D tackle take or debate, if you will, is Vikings run defense has been good all year.
Yeah.
And a big reason is the ability of those sort of no-name guys in the middle to play well enough. I think we'd be kidding ourselves if we think that Harrison Phillips, Jerry Tillery, Jihad Ward, you could throw him in there, I suppose. Jalen Redmond and Jonathan Bullard, if any of those guys are going to make the Pro Bowl or something. But I think their ability to rotate, stay fresh, and do enough, I think, has made this team one of the best run defenses in football over the year. Now, a big reason why their run defense has been so good is because they've been able to get takeaways, get out in leads, and force the other team to throw. So
Yeah.
you don't have the ability like Arizona has had or like Atlanta had to really just, marry the run and the pass, as O'Connell talks about. And, they punished the Vikings the last couple weeks with that. So I think there's definitely validity to your point. But I also just want to commend those guys because I think they've done a pretty good job for a group of guys that everyone kind of wants a replacement for. So
For sure. Well, and I should point out, my thought process is like, imagine Chris Jones, but on the Vikings. Like, like just that game echo of a D tackle. Like, and I agree with you. The run defense has been good. And I think Pace being out plays into why, the last couple weeks we've seen the run defense dip a little bit. I do think Pace is a very good player, obviously. So I do want to point out, I respect, the litany of guys that you just listed. It would be nice if we had, what was his name that played for the Dolphins that went and signed with Vegas for a ton of money.
yeah,
You know who I'm talking. Christian Wilkins. It would be nice if we had like Christian Wilkins in the building, but anyway.
yes, no, I think even like Jalen Redmond, hopefully he turns into a really nice player and has a long career.
Agreed.
But 3 nice weeks is not proof of that happening. So this needs to continue for the rest of the year if we're going to have any level of confidence that he can be our D tackle penciled in week 1 next year.
Agreed.
I think Harrison Phillips will be here, I think, for at least one more year. So he's steady. He's going to give you a solid effort. He's not going to be a guy who gets after the passer. He's not going to be a game wrecker in that way. So if it's Jalen Redmond and he really emerges, fantastic. But I think your point is a well-founded one that if it's not someone on the roster now, if it's not a trade, then you got to go get somebody in the draft because that position is becoming ever more important. Because think about it, how do teams, attack these defenses that are now, so pass sensitive with the 2 high safeties, the constantly playing in nickel and dime? They run the ball.
Absolutely.
And the reason the Chiefs are so successful is because they have a defensive tackle in the middle who can not only stop the run, but he can also get after the passer. So you never really have a way to consistently beat them. So having a guy like that on the team, like you said, it's huge. For me, feels bad. I just feel like there's so much that could feel bad. I mean, let's just start with sort of the obvious one. My preseason pick to win the NFC South looks like college team right now, and they haven't won since my birthday, which is a long time ago. And it's just, I was looking at there was this mic'd up video of Kirk Cousins on Sunday, and he was talking to the Vikings players or whatever, and then I saw I think it was on his page, and I scrolled down, and the last like Victory Monday post that he had was November 4th. It's like, dude, what are we doing, Atlanta? And obviously, like I said, Sunday was fantastic, and I was hooting and hollering after every deep shot to Addison or interception by one hand Byron Murphy. But man, my Falcons pick is looking worse by the day because now not only have they lost the lead, it is Tampa's division and they control the destiny now, which is
Yeah.
not a good place to be. Now in a position to lose 4 in a row. I mean, the other sort of feels bad. I feel like I haven't really bemoaned this team because I relish in their demise. Is my preseason pick of the Chicago Bears making the playoffs? Oh boy, that doesn't look very good.
Yeah, it's a combination too of like the Bears in, the Packers and Vikings out, which I also had the Packers out.
Yeah.
But like, man, that's tough.
Yeah, I got the NFC North all wrong, which I'm fine with it. I saw this stat the other day. I don't know if you saw this. The Vikings, the Packers, and the Lions are 28-3 this year against the rest of the NFL.
Yeah.
Against each other, somebody's got to lose, obviously. But against the rest of the NFL, they are 28-3. That is insane. It's
well, and the two coach of the year favorites. I think 3 of the top 5 coach of the year favorites are the NFC. I mean, it's the Lions, Packers, or Lions, Vikings, and Packers. Which that's a whole nother discussion about like, is Dan Campbell coach of the year? Didn't everybody pick them to go to the Super Bowl? And they look like the best or second best team.
Or Campbell being coach of the year candidates. I think that's a bunch of hogwash.
Yeah,
those two teams, everybody's darlings to win the Super Bowl. It's like, well,
exactly.
Congrats on having a good season. To me, it's O'Connell or it's Mike Tomlin or it's Jim Harbaugh or Dan Quinn in Washington.
I think you've listed all of the legitimate what should be.
You could even throw in, public enemy number 1, Sean Payton. But
oh yeah,
I am not for a minute buying that Dan Campbell deserves coach of the year.
Well, it's like Andy Reid is disqualified from winning it at this point. Like it's just yeah. Like because
no one even thinks about it.
Because winning the Super Bowl is the expectation, and having winning the division, doing all this stuff. So anything short of that's a failure. Anything, and if he does that, then yeah, that was the expectation. So I don't understand how Dan Campbell, coach of the year, is like getting steam. He's the favorite, I believe, right now. It's like, but how? Like, and don't get me wrong, Dan Campbell's a great coach. I'm not sitting here, I'm not gonna. Everyone knows my feelings on Dan Campbell. He's gonna cost them again. I mean, he's gonna live and die by being Dan Campbell. But man, what are we doing, Vegas? Or what are we doing, NFL? If we're gonna give the guy that again everybody picked to win the division, win the NFC, maybe win the Super Bowl. Good, he's winning games. Are we surprised by that? Like.
And obviously they're having a great season. 12-1. I mean, that's nothing to sniff at, but
not at all.
People expected a really good season from this team. And so I'm not here for it, as the kids say. One feels good, I guess we can kind of wrap it up here, is my Rams are still hanging around, Jordan. We can talk about that Seahawks game next week. That's going to be a tough one. But my preseason pick of the Rams winning the AFC. What conference are they in?
The NFC West.
Isn't looking as bad as it did about a month and a half ago. So
it's looking very good. I think it's looking very good. And this is
wild with the Bills.
Yeah, it was. And bad clock management, of course, from Sean McDermott, who is just the worst good coach. I think that, can we agree on that? Of all of the good coaches, because he's a good coach, his team's always good. Of all the good coaches, I think Sean McDermott is the worst. He shouldn't be fired. He's just a bad good coach, which is still a good coach, but you know what I'm trying to get at here. I want to say this. This is what's keeping me up at night. This is why I don't sleep at night. The Vikings are going to LA to play a like a game. I think that we're on a fast track for the Vikings versus the Rams in the wild card round. And my prediction of the Vikings being a wild card team, winning a playoff game, and then going home is going to be really difficult to come to fruition because the Rams scare me. They are just potent offensively, dude. They are just potent. And also the refs don't call face masks whenever the Rams, commit them. So that also has to be factored in. We kind of teased it earlier. We're going to talk about Sam Darnold. We're going to join in on the debates about, how he's played. First, I do want to get a couple of takeaways from this game, with Cousins and the Cousins Bowl and all that stuff. And we're not going to do what other shows do and just sit here and poop on Kirk Cousins and, he's making so much money and it's time to go to Michael Penix and blah, 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 blah. No, cool. Cousins is playing bad. Everyone knows it. He's an old man coming off of an Achilles injury that usually doesn't go well. I'm curious to see what his season looks like next year when he is fully recovered from the Achilles. Oh, maybe this is just, maybe he's cooked. Who knows? Who cares? He doesn't play for us. I want to talk about this defense, though, and I like that you brought up the pressures, the lack of pressure. The blitzes were picked up well by Atlanta. I saw a take, I don't remember where it was, but someone pointed out that Dallas Tauno absolutely crushed Cousins pretty early in that game. And it went from being like Cousins is dicing us up, oh boy, here we go, to he's got a little bit of happy feet now. And I think he felt that hit from Dallas Tauno. And I was happy about it because I had my Dallas Tauno t-shirt on. So I was repping Dallas Tauno with Pat Jones being out. So I think Dallas Tauno, makes a play. That's exciting to see. And like you said, there was only one sack. It wasn't this crazy, oh my gosh, Cousins just never had time type of game. But the Vikings, and again, I'm not throwing, we're going to throw a little bit of shade at Kirk Cousins, right? He was the opposing QB. The Vikings know that Cousins will give you a ball or two a game. Sometimes, especially when he's down and he starts having to, that game had a shootout feel for 75% of it. The Vikings took advantage of Cousins and the shootout feel, and he gave him a couple gifts. He had one bad ball to Pitts that, like you said, Byron Murphy had that one-handed pick, went into the end zone, ended up setting up that 98-yard touchdown drive. Cousins just didn't. He just overthrew it, and he almost overthrew the entire play, but he just didn't put enough on it, so it ended up being a pick. And then he tried to fit a ball in to, by Metellus and just kind of threw it straight to Metellus. So the Vikings defense, you said the offense kind of won this game. I do think the Vikings defense did a good job in this one of just making the plays that were there to be made, and it just kind of felt like a standard solid day from the defense. It wasn't anything crazy. It wasn't embarrassing. It was just that's what you want your defense to do when your quarterback's going to throw 5 touchdowns, and just don't be terrible today. And I was somewhat happy with it. How concerned are you about the run defense? Do you think Ivan Pace coming back in a few weeks is gonna, spark it back up and get us back to, being a really good run defense? Or do you think that this is a legitimate problem that come playoffs is going to be the Achilles heel of this team? Well, if you keep it a game, you can run the ball on this team a little bit.
It's a really good question because recency tells us that there's maybe some holes with Pace out, and you're relying on Metellus playing linebacker, which we didn't love when Cashman was out, or maybe there's a little more Camus in there, or Jamin Davis, or some of these other, kind of random off-the-ball linebackers, or asking Van Ginkel to do non-Van Ginkel things just to patch a hole. And it is interesting how much of a cascade effect one guy of what everybody deems to be the least important position on the defense, inside linebacker, how much that cascades and affects the rest of the defense. And I think it's telling because this Vikings defense has some really good inside linebackers. Pace and Cashman are fantastic. They're like the new and improved
Kendricks and Bow.
Exactly. And they're different, they play different, they have different strengths.
But I think
But
that is a good comparison because Cashman is Kendricks, kind of rangy, good in coverage, good in run support, that kind of thing. And Pace is, if he comes on a blitz, he's dangerous. I mean, he's legitimately dangerous. I mean, that's what everybody said about him coming out, and that's what he's shown in the league. So, I mean, I think that there's more similarities than you might think at first.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the stature difference between Anthony Barr and
Yeah.
5'0" Ivan Pace is probably what's confusing me a little bit. But I don't think I have too deep of concerns just because we've seen enough of this team succeeding to where. I mean, they're giving up less than 4 yards a carry on the season. That means something. It's not everything because I think you have to take context into it, and like we said, if we're going to be without Pace, there's going to be a challenge there. But I think it also depends, and you made sort of a note at this earlier, talking about the Rams, and then I talked about with the Cardinals. If you run into a team in the playoffs that their strength is the running game, it could be a challenge, and you could get into one of those situations where you might need to match points a little more. Which this offense showed they're capable of. Now, I don't really respect Atlanta's defense, but that's another discussion. So there's a little bit of concern, but it's definitely not the most concerning thing to me. Honestly, Jordan, if I'm being honest, this team doesn't have that many holes. And it's kind of a wild thing to think about. I think the leakiness of the run defense, like you said, could be maybe the most concerning thing if you want on the defensive side. But there just aren't too many deep holes with this team where you look at a potential deep playoff run as that's going to be the roadblock that automatically will stop them. So
I think
those are my thoughts on the run defense.
Yeah, and I think they're opportunistic enough, which kind of scares me. We'll talk about this whenever we talk about Sam in a minute, but they are creating turnovers at a rate where it's like, I know you can't just depend that like they're gonna get 2 picks or 3 turnovers in a playoff game, but yeah, run the ball all you want. If they win the turnover battle on the day and they give their offense an advantageous chance to get up 2 possessions all of a sudden, they go from, hey, we have a 3-point lead to, almost cuss there. Poo-poo. It's a 10-point game now. We need to throw the ball. We need to get back in this. And then all of a sudden they're pinning the ears back, and that's when Grenard and Ginkle and, DT and Jihad Wild and all these guys are just coming after you. And I didn't even say Pat Jones, who has like 7 sacks or something. So it gets nasty, and they have a snowball effect where if you let them start going downhill, it gets really nasty really quick. But if you can keep them from rolling downhill, we've seen it with the Rams. We've seen it with the Lions, where it's kind of like, no, we're going to dictate this game. We're going to play at our pace. We're going to run the ball. We're going to sustain drives, make you tired, and then we're going to start leaning on you late in games. And, that can definitely be a problem for the Vikings. Do you want to talk about Sam? This is heavy on everyone's mind.
I need your Sam perspective because I see it coming out of your ears and through your sunglasses, and I need it.
Okay, so the Sam perspective is this. One, let's recap the day. How are you watching this show? Of all shows, this is the show you didn't watch the game and you come to us for the recap. That makes no sense. Go watch the games. Thank you for watching, whatever. But Sam threw 5 touchdowns. First time in 20 years since Dante did it 20 years ago. That a Vikings QB has thrown 5 touchdowns. He has set the record for the most 100 plus whatever passer rating games in Vikings history. He is playing out of his mind. I do think right now the MVP conversation should be Josh Allen and Saquon, and then Sam Darnold as a solid number 3. I don't think there's a QB playing. Joe Burrow is up there, but his team sucks, so he kind of gets eliminated from MVP talks. But he is playing like one of the best QBs in the league, and he has been for a month. And if you look at the season as a whole, he had like a 2 or 3 game dip where it was like, yeah, Sam's not going to be back next season. All of a sudden, 11 touchdowns, No picks. He's playing out of his mind. He's making these elusive run around like Josh Allen and then throw the ball 50 yards down the field to a wide open guy. Get the stadium on its feet. He's playing fun type of football. He's waving his towel around. This is my warning. Okay? This is my comeback to earth. This is my warning. This is going to be a conversation all the way up until like April, most likely, right? Don't buy into anyone that says the same stuff that we said about Cousins. Okay? We just did this. We just did this debate for 6 years. Okay? And you can go back, copy paste the same takes, but just dub over where we said Kirk Cousins and just say Sam Darnold. Example would be, you better watch out. Teams go into decade-long droughts trying to find a QB that's playing as good as Sam Darnold. And they said the same thing about Cousins. And, if you move on from Sam, it's going to put the team back a decade. If you move on from Sam, who know, what if the next QB of the Vikings is Christian Ponder? What if we go back to stouting guys like Dante Culpepper and T-Jack? And what if the team turns into the Cleveland Browns? It's just a discourse that I don't, because we got to remember, man, this team needs a D tackle. Look at the defensive backs room. It's Harrison Smith, who I hope comes back next season, but he's not young. There's a chance he's going to suck if he comes back. You remember when Greenway came back for his final season and he was terrible? There's a chance Harrison Smith falls off a cliff next year. So Harrison Smith is really old. Stephon Gilmore is on a 1-year deal and is really old. Shaq Griffin is on a 1-year deal and isn't really old, but is kind of old. Who else is in the secondary? Byron Murphy is a free agent at the end of this season. Cam Bynum is a free agent at the end of this season. I mean, the secondary needs bodies in it. And I don't want this team that I think is in a solid Super Bowl window to have to stout that window over because we paid Sam $50 million. And now the secondary is Mekhi Blackman and some third or fourth round draft pick out of, Mississippi State who comes in and we say we hope he can turn into half of the player that Stephon Gilmore was last season. There's just going to be a lot of question marks that I would love to solve with known quantities that have played in the NFL rather than who knows if it's going to work out day 2, day 3 draft picks. And we're going to get back into having to fill roster spots with day 2, day 3 draft picks if we sign a QB to that kind of a contract. He's playing out of his mind. If he wins a Super Bowl, you give him whatever he wants. I would love to see him back next season on a 1-year deal with a team option. Because if he does this again next year, he's your quarterback. Get rid of JJ. He's the guy. I mean, but I don't know, man. We've seen QBs play really well. Gardner Minshew played really well for Jacksonville. He kind of sucks now. And Sam has a lot of sucky tape in his past. So I'm hesitant to just be yeah, give him a 5-year contract for, $200 million. Let's just get this thing settled now. It has to be reasonable and it has to leave enough money in the pot for the Vikings to still build a team around him. So when he does have his Sam Darnold type days where he throws a couple picks and he doesn't have his fastball, the defense can bail him out. The offense has enough playmakers and a good run game to bail him out. We need a new center. We need a new guard. We're going to need a running back. We're going to need all of the secondary pieces I just mentioned. We need a D tackle. There's holes on this team that we need to fill so we can be really, with no doubt, the best team in the division. And I think we're there. We're on the precipice. And the question is, who's going to be the QB of all this? So that's my Sam take. I know it was long. I'm sorry it was long. I'll consider that my final thoughts for this show, just that way we can, get into this Chicago game next week. But, Will, I'm curious on your thought on Sam and then your final thoughts and everything because, like I said, that was long, that was rambly, but I had to get it off my chest.
It's hard to say that because, and I'm going to basically agree with you, so I'm not going to just copy and paste. I agree with pretty much everything you said. It's hard to say that, though, because of what we're seeing right now. And obviously, as a fan, I am trying to just turn off my 2025 brain and just drink it in, baby,
Yeah.
and just love the ride. Because even if this team loses in the first round of the playoffs, this season has been a heck of a ride. And nobody saw this coming. Not even the biggest Vikings proponents saw this coming. The only people who saw this coming are in that building in Egan. And so I think that's maybe point number one, is just trying to just take a step back and say, like, okay, this is fantastic. Now, as for 2025, because it's an important question, you think you drafted your franchise quarterback in JJ McCarthy? I think both of us think that JJ is going to be good in the NFL. We would love for it to be here. But if Sam is that guy, like you said, and he takes us to the Super Bowl, you keep him.
Oh yeah.
Maybe. But here's the thing, because it's, to your point, how do teams build consistent contenders without going full Rams, as Kwesi would say? You have to hit on draft picks. And the one thing that Kwesi has not been great at in his time here is drafting. And I think it's maybe gotten a tiny bit better. Guys like Brian Asamoah are showing up on special teams, making big plays. He's getting raved about by his coaches, by the way, which is a very welcome sign for fans who are continually and justifiably worried about Kwesi's drafts. Kwesi's been really good at a lot of things. Free agent acquisitions, getting a quarterback like Sam Darnold on a, bottom of the barrel bargain deal. How well is that working out? Pretty well. Undrafted rookies for some reason seems to be better than drafting people for Kwesi. And so there's been a lot of things that he's done really well. Setting us up for the future better financially, getting out of that cap hell. I was proposed a solution that I do not agree with, but somebody was saying, hey, we could re-sign Darnold and just, defer the money. I'm not into that, because then you're just kicking the can down the road again, and you keep doing that. And eventually that bill is going to come due. And yes, this year we're sitting in a ton of cap debt and they're still succeeding. But you can't consistently live with $60 million of dead cap on your bills and build a contender. So the only way that I like the idea of bringing Sam Darnold back is like what you suggested. A, they win the Super Bowl. B, it's a 1-year deal with a team option, something like that. Or you franchise tag him. I don't even know if you can do that based on his contract situation.
There's been no mention in the history of people talking. Now, granted, no one. It's not like it was, people were thinking, oh, the Vikings might franchise tag Sam Darnold, but his representation could have put that in there. But it's never been said that there's a no tag clause. So I'm sure.
Well, he's just on a 1-year deal. There's no.
It's a 1 year. It's 1 year, $10 million. It's $5 million this year, and then they pushed $5 million into next season. And I would be okay if they wanted to sign him to like a 1 year, $50 million deal and put 5 years of whatever. And it's like, you know what? We're going to pay $10 million a season for Sam Darnold, and we're going to bet on him a little bit. And if it works out, then yeah, sure, do the Kirk Cousins cap restructuring, because he's playing at a level right now. I mean, like, I legitimately think if you just blind tested, watch Sam Darnold versus watch Joe Burrow the last month, it's a lot closer than you would want to think. Like, and Joe Burrow is playing out of his mind. So I understand why I want him back. I do want him back. It's just I don't want to tank the next 3 years.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you look at the top 4 passer ratings in the NFL. Lamar Jackson is 116. That's insane. But then sequentially after him in the 108, 109 range, it goes Goff, Darnold, Burrow.
That's insane.
Yes, Sam Darnold has the 3rd best passer rating in the NFL through 13 games. This is no longer a fluke. And I think we do need to just kind of cap this discussion with that is if you don't buy Sam Darnold as a viable quarterback for this team anymore, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
Because what he is doing for this team right now is insane. And he is breaking records. He's got 100 pass rating in basically every game. It's unbelievable what he's been able to do, and he is playing elite quarterback right now. So it's just something that we have to appreciate because, the guy that everyone talks about, Pat Mahomes, he's below league average passer rating wise. And you compare the two between Darnold and Mahomes. I tweeted this last week. I think Darnold's having a better year.
Oh, he is.
And
100%.
I haven't watched every snap of the Chiefs, but I've watched plenty of the Chiefs. They're on primetime plenty and they get a lot of, national TV games. Sam Darnold looks like he's playing the position at a higher level than Patrick Mahomes. Now, what Mahomes can do in the clutch and his unbelievable ability to always ice games and like that's something that Darnold obviously is not there yet. But what Darnold is doing is wildly impressive. So let's just appreciate it.
And if you look, and I'm not going to do the is Sam Darnold better than Patrick Mahomes? We're not going to clickbait you guys, but Mahomes' ability to just ice people out and just put people away. Okay, let's take a look at Sam when he's had opportunities to just put people away. He gets the ball in Chicago after the defense makes a stand. He gets the ball, he mouches that team down the field and wins the game and gets them into field goal range and wins the game and has some stones on some third down throws. I mean, some big time clutch throws on the road, division game, Chicago outside weather, doesn't matter. I'm trying to think. He had the comeback drive against Arizona where he just mouches down the field and Kevin draws up a great play in the red zone, respect to the coach as well. Let's not forget that the coach, that's another reason why I'm hesitant to re-sign him, is because, Kevin has kind of proven, hey, give me Kirk Cousins, best seasons of his career. Give me Sam Darnold. He looks like the best one of the best QBs in the league. Do we not think and then KOC says, hey, I want JJ McCarthy. You don't think he's going to be good? You know what I mean? And good and cheap. But anyway, I think that Sam has had, when he's had those opportunities to F you this, I'm going to put this game out of reach. Earlier in the season, there was a lot of, hey, the Vikings were up 20 and now they're only up 3. Can we do, and then okay, I got you. Touchdown. No problem. Game's over. Go try an onside kick. You're not going to get it. We win the game. It's been a lot of that this season. And so I think, so many third downs where he's just and it's not that Case Keenum, F it, Diggs or Thielen's down there somewhere. It's it feels like every time there's a third and long, they just run Jordan Addison on an out route and Sam lails it perfectly and it goes for a first down. And if not that, then, he does something stupid with his legs because his legs are super underappreciated. To me right now, he feels like Josh Allen toned down to about 8. Is that fair?
Yeah.
He's just
he's
big,
kind of
strong.
discount Josh Allen.
Yeah. And
I don't think that's an unfair take, which is insane. But after having watched him for 3 months, I just don't know how you can watch that and not think that that's reasonable.
Yeah.
He's not as big. He's not as strong. He maybe can't throw at 70 yards, but he can probably throw at 60. And it's wildly impressive. I do agree, though, in terms of the long-term stuff, I saw somebody, I think it was Purple for the Win. Shout out, Andy. But he was, he tweeted something like, hey, the Vikings might have 2 franchise quarterbacks now. My kind of cynical response was, no, I think we just have the franchise coach.
That's really good. Yeah,
I think this team has found their kingmaker. And I'm at the point, Jordan, where I will be surprised if Kevin O'Connell finishes his tenure in Minnesota without a Super Bowl.
I wouldn't.
That's where I'm at with this.
But I would be shocked if he ends his coaching career without one. We've seen great coaches. Andy Reid comes to mind. Coaches in Philly,
True.
very successful in Philly, never quite gets it done, and eventually they just decide, you know what, we have to part ways. He goes to Kansas City, he figures it out, and he's now, dynastic. And so I would be shocked if O'Connell doesn't win one. There's a cynical side of me that says it's not going to be with the Vikings because, I can't be happy.
It's gonna be in short something.
yeah. But all right, I've been Jelden. He's been Will. Will, I'll let you get your final thoughts in. Let me really quick. Shop Unified. Follow Will at Will Bad Lose. And smash that like button. Hammer the subscribe button. Absolutely massacre the comment section. Whatever it is, like that whole nonsense. Follow the show at LTB Vikings. But Will, I'll let you final thoughts, and then we'll get into the next segment.
My very last thing on that Kevin O'Connell bit, something he said very nonchalantly this morning. We're recording this on a Tuesday. Very nonchalantly on a radio hit with Paul Allen when talking about, how this team is doing and, all those sorts of things, outlook for the season and are you guys outperforming, are you guys going to get the recognition that you deserve? And Kevin basically, I'll paraphrase this part and then I'll actually quote the next part. He basically said, I don't really care about the recognition. These guys deserve it, but we don't really need it. But what he said sort of as he trailed off in his sentence, which I thought was just so killer, such a dark, twisted, killer comment was, we're coming and we're not slowing down anytime soon. That's our head coach, folks. We got a big game on Monday night. We're going to record that episode here shortly. Talk to you soon. Skol, y'all.